First, now that the dust has settled and the city is coming to terms, for the most part, with the reality of no Olympics in 2024, you'll have to forgive the pun here, but the Monday morning quarterbacking is on. And Mayor Marty Walsh is smack in the middle of it all. As we found out today, there are mixed opinions over just what transpired in the past 24 hours and the mayor's part in it all.
I was impressed with what he had to say and his support of the taxpayers. I think he was very clear in his message that he had little choice, that he remained supportive of the Olympic effort, and he would have liked to have seen it here, but he was not willing to, what did he say, mortgage the taxpayers.
Yeah, I was disappointed. I think Boston's going to lose out on something that would have been good for the city.
Good or no good, the USOC has made its decision. Join me now on this and more is Boston Mayor Marty Walsh. Mr. Mayor, good to see you.
Thanks, Jim.
So the conventional wisdom is when you announce your refusal to sign the taxpayer guarantee, that was the final nail. But my sense is, even if that was part of it, the USOC had decided they were not going to have the Olympics come to Boston. Is that not a fair statement?
Well, there was too many questions around it, and they kept raising the bar on us. And at the end of the day, we're the only city right now vying. We were the only city vying for the 2024 games that had a plan that was 90% complete, that had a financial model complete, that was talking about the insurance of any other city in competition around the world. So,
but pretty weak support. I mean, that was in their statement. Their concern continued to be that below that line, that 50% support level, right?
Yeah, but there wasn't enough time to be able to vet through everything to get the support up either.
Do you think you're partly responsible for this thing as well? You were really strong, I think, in the last couple of months. I'm not doing a taxpayer guarantee that puts my constituents at risk of having to pay for overruns. Early on, starting in October, you're signing letters, you're signing documents to the USOC saying, I'll sign everything, the standard contract, the whole deal, which included the guarantee.
But I was always clear on the guarantee that we would have to have an insurance policy to cover it. I never said I would sign it without having some type of insurance. I was clear from day one on that, that I knew we'd have to sign the whole city agreement at the very end of this process. And in that agreement, there was any overruns would be responsible to be paid for by the city of Boston. I knew all that up front, but I also said I wouldn't sign it unless we got the insurance policy.
You know, one of the pieces of your press event yesterday that has been mentioned about 4,000 times. The opposition, for the most part, is about 10 people on Twitter, you said. Isn't it fair to say the proponents, for the most part, are 10 masters of the universe, and that was really the problem in the minds of the public?
My response to them were the 10 people that are on Twitter that have been chasing me and criticizing me and making stuff up for the last 6 months. There was clearly opposition to the Olympics. No Boston Olympic was one of those groups.
Grassroots opposition,
grassroots opposition, yeah. But I was more referring to the Twitter people. The No Boston Olympics folks, I met with them 3 times in my office. They weren't opposed to the idea of the Olympics. They were concerned about the cost overruns and concerned about taxpayers' money, which we all agreed upon in my office. So I probably should have clarified my statement yesterday when I was talking about it.
But what I said the second half is the perception, which in part sunk this, was it was 10 big boys, for the most part, who aren't used to dealing with real people.
Well, last 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I made a comment about a public meeting that people weren't able to have a conversation there because the people that didn't want the Olympics were getting up and dominating the meeting, and the people that wanted the Olympics were getting up and dominating the meeting, and the people that were in the audience to listen, they were leaving. It happened out in Brighton where people just said, or in Jamaica Plain actually, where people just said, they left. They started leaving because they couldn't get into the conversation. And again, I think there was trouble long before that, and there was trouble coming out of the gate.
I want to read you. Bob Ryan has been to 11 Olympics games. I assume you read his column about a Sunday ago. The problem with Boston 2024 people is that they simply do not seem to know what they're doing. There's no reason to believe anything they say because everything they say changes. They're complete amateur hour. Even if a benefactor handed them a check for $20 billion, they would botch the job. Is he wrong?
I think what the problem was, we didn't have the time we needed, and the time wasn't allowed to be able to roll out a process. In past Olympic bids, you had a 2-year period from the time that the USOC made the determination to the time you had to put in the final application in for the final competition. We didn't have that. We had an 8-month period. We had some changes at 2024 where we made some organizational changes. John stepped down, Steve stepped in.
Peliuca,
moved in to take over the bid. In 6 weeks, Steve put together a very strong 2.0 bid plan. We were working on the insurance policy. We kept getting timelines thrown at us by the United States Olympic Committee saying, you need to have by this date, by this date, by this date. You just can't wait. It's not a recipe for success.
Put together a strong plan? There's no aquatic center. There was no velodrome. Let me just finish this. There's no media center. The media center went in 1.0 from 500 million to 50 million. There's no chance of getting an insurance policy for the overruns. What was strong about the plan?
Paris, and other international cities don't even have venues in their plan yet. The Olympics is until 2024. The decision's not made till 2017. There's 2 years left to go. That's when I talked earlier about we had more of a plan than any other city in the Olympic movement.
So why did they pull it? Purely because there was no support?
I think they panicked. I think they panicked. The fact that I wouldn't sign a document that had taxpayers paying for overruns. I think they pulled it because the poll numbers weren't showing what they want them to show, and I think they pulled it because they want to know where the governor and the other legislative leaders were as far as the Olympics.
You don't think they treated Boston fairly, do you?
I don't think we're treated all the way we should have been.
Why?
Because I know Boston can put on a good Olympics. I know Boston. When we look at 2024, when the Olympics are being held, wherever they're being held, we're going to look and say, look what we've done since that time in our city, developing Whitehead Circle potentially, developing housing at Harbor Point, doing some other things. And whatever city it is, and it'll be a great city, but I'd be willing to bet that Boston could have delivered it better.
So how did they not trade? Just purely because they pulled the plug as quickly as they did?
I think they got a little nervous with past practices. They've lost the last couple bids. They didn't bid on the 2020 games. They lost 2012 in New York. They lost 2016 in Chicago.
With the President of the United States traveling to the IOC to make the pitch, and they come in last.
Which wasn't good. They didn't bid in 2020, and I think they're getting a little, it's been since 1984, last time we had the Summer Games. Oh, 1992. 1996.
One of the things that you've said throughout this, as did the leaders, as did that guy from New York, who I think did no help to your cause at the debate the other night on Fox News, this Doctoroff character, was that we'll benefit from the process even if we don't get the games.
Yeah.
So what you mentioned a minute ago, Whitehead Circle, the affordable housing, other kinds of development. Are those things going to happen?
They could happen.
Regardless? Will, what?
Well, when you look at what happened there, millions of dollars were spent on designing and plans for 2024. The city and the state can benefit from the plans that were put forth. Money that we don't have to invest in what could happen there. And I plan on with Imagine Boston 2030 to look at those areas and to develop those areas.
So you don't think you're going to disappoint those people whose hopes were raised, even if they had concerns about the financing, whose hopes were raised about affordable housing, about
Absolutely
development,
not. I mean,
about neighborhoods?
We already have plans that this would be worked into.
What'd you learn from this? I mean, you're the kind of guy who's fairly self-reflective.
I am. I think the first thing I learned is that we have a great city, and that we went for the United States bid and we won. We won the competition to be chosen. We beat out LA, we beat out Washington D.C., we beat out San Francisco. The strengths of our city are there. In the meantime, after that, we learned that the planning process to think bigger than we might be thinking. I think as far as the Olympic movement, what did I learn there? I think I learned to be able to tell other cities that go for the 2028 games and the whatever games after that, to say be prepared for what's going to come the next day.
Would you tell them don't trust the USOC?
I don't know if I'd go that far. I'd just say you have to be better prepared for the coming.
Donald Trump, who I know is one of your favorite politicians, tweeted, Boston's
He's not
mayor,
a politician yet.
Well, I think he is. He's in. Well, maybe August 6th in the debate. Boston's Mayor Walsh wasted a lot of time and money on going for the Olympics, and then he gave up. I don't want him negotiating for me. What do you say to the Donald?
Good luck with your campaign.
No, when you saw the Pope, we want to talk about that in a minute. Did you ask him to pray for the games to come to Boston? You don't do that kind of. I just want to be clear. What was that like? You're a good Catholic boy. Everybody knows this. What was it like being in the presence of
incredible.
Pope?
When the Pope walked into the room, you could just feel his spirit. It was just amazing. He spoke in Spanish. He addressed us in Spanish, and for a few minutes I took off the headphones just to listen to his voice. It was just absolutely incredible to have the Pope and that close.
What was the personal experience like?
It was just incredible. I mean, he was literally 2.5 feet in front of me, and I was watching him, and just like it was just remarkable being a Catholic. And being in the room. And I had other friends of mine that mayors from around the country that are not Catholic. They were all just amazed by the Pope.
We got some email on the radio side on Boston Public Radio saying they were glad you were there. They cared a lot about the human trafficking issue. They cared a lot about climate change, which are the two primary things. They were disappointed that there was not an opportunity, or that you didn't take an opportunity to raise the critical issue in a lot of people's minds about Boston, about the abuse issue, the sexual abuse issue, the priests not still being fully addressed in the minds of many survivors and their supporters. How do you respond to that?
There wasn't the dialogue wasn't set up for that conversation to happen. The conversation really was around climate change, was around sex trafficking, was also around sexual slavery. So we didn't have a dialogue with the Pope, and he came in. There were about 250 people in the room, so there wasn't a one-on-one presence. If I had that opportunity with him, I would have had more of a dialogue.
Did you ask any of his people about coming to Boston? We all know it's D.C., it's Washington, New York. What's the deal?
I did. I asked them. I sent them another letter, and one of his top aides is coming to Boston in the next couple of weeks.
So you still think there's a shot here?
I'm going to try. And they said the way it would happen is if the Pope extended his trip one more day.
So it's not inconceivable.
It's not over yet. Not until
You're a betting man?
I am betting. I wouldn't bet on this one right now, though. I'm still. I wouldn't even say 50-50 at this point.
So if you're a betting man, you say you're betting. Let's change subjects. Would you bet that you're going to see Jimmy Garoppolo quarterbacking in an opening game or two for the Patriots? You know what happened today to Brady. We're going to talk to Ben Volen about. You're a season ticket holder?
Yes, I am.
You are?
Yes, I am.
That's why I just heard this. So how do you react to this Brady thing?
You know, I think the NFL got it wrong. And I think the fact that, you know, whether the suspension or not should be upheld, I think 4 games for allegedly what Tom Brady had done, I think it's too many games. I think the NFL could have looked at the fine differently. I think they need to get on a consistent basis. You have football players that have domestic violence in their backgrounds that have been suspended for 4 games, reduced down to 2. Yeah. Some have been banned. Some have been banned from the league, obviously, in the last couple of years. One of them, anyway. But I think the NFL has to get their priorities correct.
So, if I were to say to you 10 years ago, when you were a state rep, I said, "So, Marty Walsh, Representative Walsh, can you ever see yourself moving out of Savin Hill, not having McKenna's Cafe down the street?" What would you say to me?
This isn't fair. No.
You're moving to Lower Mills, for those who don't know.
Yeah, I looked in Savin Hill, and I looked everywhere for a home, and weren't able to find the right house.
Why are you moving?
Looking for a bigger house.
Why?
Because I need a bigger house.
Why do you need a bigger house?
Because I do need a bigger
house.
Well, I mean, the Pope told me I need a bigger house. So I can put a bigger TV to watch Tom Brady in Game 5.
So let's end where we started. How disappointed are you personally? I mean, you invested a lot in this thing. I mean, to your credit, one of the things, I don't know if you consider it to your credit, one of the reasons I think this bid was sunk was because they weren't transparent. You forced them to be transparent when they were, and information came out. A lot of people got upset because they thought correctly they were trying to hide things. Yeah. How did this personally affect you? You invested a lot in the first last 6 months.
Last night I thought about the Olympics, and I thought, what an unbelievable opportunity that's been squandered here. That I felt bad about. And I think that Boston hosting the 2024 games would have been absolutely incredible, and the fact that we're even in the conversation. But at the end of the day, as mayor of the city of Boston, I could not sign any document that would put the taxpayers at risk.
Do you worry about the reputation of Boston being sullied?
No, because I'm going to continue to work hard as mayor to continue to raise the profile of our city. Right now, we have $7 billion of economic development. We have people moving into our city. We have the largest population since the 1960s. We have the lowest unemployment rate since the year 2000. We have companies looking all over the nation to come into Boston and do economic development. We have a lot of great things happen in our city. We're very much in the spotlight, and we're going to continue to push.
How are you going to feel if it ends up in L.A.?
Good luck to L.A.
You really mean that?
Yeah.
No, you don't. Nice to see you, Mayor Walsh. Good to see you.